So before I started filming this video, I accidentally knocked over a bottle of my pepper spray and some of it leaked onto my leg. So I am literally in so much pain right now, but you know what? We'll power through. Awkward introduction aside, hello there. My name is Curriculum Zoe. As of right now, I do plan on changing my channel name soon, but for now, Zoe's also okay. And I'm not sure if you've been on the internet as of late, but you may or may not have noticed that China is becoming very popular as a destination for people to want to move to as of late. And I will not be delving into the reasons as to why that is, but as someone who is actually living here, I'm hoping to give you some more insight into what living here is like, or working here rather, is like, especially in the English teaching field, because I'm assuming that's what you're interested in doing if you click on this video. And before I delve into the rest of this video, I do want to do a little bit of like housekeeping with my regular subscribers. It's been a while since I've seen you guys, and the reason for that is like I had a couple of personal affairs that I had to attend to, including a surgery that I had to recover from. Everything's fine now though, thankfully. So my uploading schedule was just like impacted by that. And hopefully from now onwards, I will be a lot more frequent with my uploads. So if you are interested in watching me document my life here in China or just like share my thoughts about a wide variety of topics, which I will be uploading a lot more often from now on, then do not hesitate to hit like and subscribe. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's free. So yeah. Okay, housekeeping is out of the way now. Now I will be delving into the rest of the video. So yeah, before I talk about the types of teaching jobs here in China, I do want to just expand a little bit on non-teaching jobs, and I do not want to like give the impression that the only way to come to China is as an English teacher. There are many other types of jobs out there. However, most of them are going to require that you are at least somewhat proficient in Chinese. The only caveats to these would potentially be like if you work at a multinational corporation that has some branches here in China, then there might be like opportunity or options for you, especially like in Shanghai or Beijing, for you to not need to know how to speak the language. But for the most part, if you don't want to teach, you're probably going to have to know some Chinese. There are like options in terms of like side gigs here also, like modeling and other dancing monkey, as they're so lovingly referred to here by the expat slash immigrant community here in China, that you can check out. And where you'll typically be finding these job listings are on eChina Cities or eChina Careers. I'm not sure which one of the two, because I've seen both sites. I also know that there's lots of listings on LinkedIn and Indeed. However, as with anything in life, please do your due diligence and make sure that those companies actually exist. It's kind of difficult to verify that, but good luck. I that's all I can say at this point. I really do hope that if you do find something, that they're authentic positions. So yeah, now we'll be further elaborating on like the teaching field here, ESL teaching field here in China. So there are different types of schools and they will have different like positions that they're going to be offering. So there's going to be, as with anywhere else in the world, public schools, international schools, bilingual schools, training centers, and universities. So for the most part, all of that seems pretty straightforward. However, if you're not aware, a training center is essentially like a language learning academy, usually after school hours. And those listings typically do not offer very long vacation times, as it's more like a cram school, and their time off is typically not on a weekday, or you will have two consecutive, or I'm not sure if they will be consecutive. You will have 2 days off, but depending on the school and how their scheduling is done, your days off are going to fall on weekdays. So just to like give you a brief overview of like what you can expect of these jobs in terms of like pay. So from what I've seen, public schools do not offer very high salaries. I would say the range would be from around 15,000 RMB to 20,000 RMB. That's mostly what I've seen public schools offer. And they typically do offer you longer vacations because they work with like the national holiday scheduling system and like the training centers do. And then universities, they typically will require, depends, you to be at least have like a master's degree, but there are opportunities for you to not need that. Just a BA can be fine depending on the university. However, I think obviously for bigger universities, that's going to be like having more qualifications are going to be in your are going to be to your benefit. These listings, however, they have very low teaching hours, but they have very low pay as well. So do with that what you wish. If you feel like you just want to do something that's very easy, or not easy, but like has an easy schedule, then university listing might be your option. And then, oh, I also didn't mention that there are adult schools as well, or night schools, I suppose. So teaching adults is also an option if you don't want to teach young students here outside of just like universities. I'm not too clued up on those pay ranges though, or what their scheduling is like, unfortunately. But yeah, so universities, low hours, but also low pay. And then bilingual schools, as you can mention, if you can figure out what that means, is like typically most of the teachers are going to be instructing in Chinese or English. And then international schools, these schools do offer better salaries. However, they also have very high requirements of their teachers, especially in the bigger cities. So these are going to typically be the schools that want you to at least have like a PGCE, which is a postgraduate certificate of education, or some familiarity, not so, be IB curriculum certified, or whatever other countries, depending on the schools that offer or whatever equivalent that those other countries might have. Those, as far as I'm aware, those are like most of the job listings that you might see if you're interviewing. Another layer of differentiation is that jobs vary in pay according to whether you are a native speaker versus a non-native speaker. So unfortunately, this means that you just need to have been born in one of the, I think there's 6 countries, the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, and South Africa. And I think, I wonder if it's New Zealand one of those options. I'm not sure. So yeah, so those are the legally recognized native speaking English countries. And those are typically the job listings that have a wider range of options for you as a teacher. However, as a non native teacher, there are still options for you, but your pay might not be as great, irrespective of if you have a master's degree in education or not. Unfortunately, like the idea of prestige is very much tied to Western hegemony, which I will not be delving into here. But if you are someone who's just like from bumfuck nowhere in Iowa and you speak English very well, yeah, that's it. You just speak the language. You don't necessarily know how to teach the language or whatever. You are good enough, or you would be a better candidate in the eyes of the schools, as most of them, not all of them, as someone who's from a non-native speaking country that is more qualified or has more experience. So fortunately, that is the nature of the teaching field here. And what else is there? So, oh, in addition to just teaching English as a foreign language, there are also positions for subject teachers. So that means that while you'll be using English as a medium of instruction, you can, if you're qualified, you can offer classes in maths or science, maybe not science. I've seen a lot of listings for PE teachers. Like, if I were you, I would get certified in PE or any type of physical education and come here, because you guys could make like bank here. Like, there's a very big demand for PE teachers here that I've noticed. So that's basically like a general overview of the types of job listings. Now we'll be delving into the actual current state of the market, which unfortunately is not looking so great for us as English teachers, both coming in or who are already here. And I will be providing a list of reasons for why that is. So in general, before, like, irrespective of the market, bigger cities have a higher demand from us as teachers because most of us want to be living in a metropolitan area where there's more options for things for us to do or things to see. So those will typically be like the tier one cities, like Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing. I want to say is Guangzhou tier. Yeah, I feel like Guangzhou is a tier one city. So those cities are very popular, and most people are gunning for positions there, which means that these schools are very, very, very selective with who they want, and their criteria may or may not make sense to you as an outsider, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, I don't think that the way that they're operating here is going to change anytime soon, and it also kind of makes sense as more parents like have exposure to the outside world, or they themselves speak English, so they're going to have higher expectations of us as teachers, which I feel like is a fair expectation to have. If you're paying for a service, you kind of want your kids to be able to speak a language that you're forking out a bunch of cash for. So yeah, competition is very tough, and a lot of reasons to factor in as to why that is the birth rate here is tanking, essentially. So for those who, for some, if you're not aware, here in East Asia, like they have the lowest birth rates internationally. I think Korea and Japan are in the lead for that, and then China is following in suit. So just like as an example, the city that I'm in right now, I saw a statistic that said in 2023 there were 17 million students that enrolled, and that number has dropped down to 8 million students as of now in 2026. I'm not sure what amount of students they're accounting for, but that's like, it's a fuck ton of people. That's a huge decrease if you can do the math. So naturally, implications of this low decline of like students, it means that schools are shutting down, or they're merging into other schools, or yeah, there's just why do you need to hire a teacher if there's no babies to be taught? Overall market shift, and also there's a constant government crackdowns. I remember a few years back, like training centers were considered, I'm not sure, illegal, or I kind of forgot like the exact details, but training centers were like in lots of hot water a few years ago. I'm not sure why they're fine now, but these government crackdowns, they do end up like causing restrictions for schools in terms of like how they operate. And that can mean that you just randomly will get axed. And then, like I mentioned before, like there is a higher expectation of just like how well skilled you are as you at your job. So the more accredited you are, the better positions you will be getting. Basically, because of just like the general state of the economy internationally, schools are not offering the salaries that they used to when it was like just when COVID ended. So that's when I came. So I made it out just in the nick of time in terms of like being able to secure like a decent salary. But in general, salary ranges are like falling, and there's a lot of reasons for that outside of the ones that I've just listed. So basically, out of all the countries that I've listed, and this is no shade to South Africans, as I am South African myself, but a lot of us, or a lot of these schools have wisened up to the fact that the exchange rate for the salaries that we are earning here is in our favor. So we're making like a decent amount of money here compared to like other countries who are technically, if they had to like take their money out of China and into their respective countries, they're essentially earning like minimum wage. So we are not. So these schools, they know that. And as a result, they are undercharging or lowering their salaries because a lot of people are desperate to get jobs. And yeah, that just means that across the board, schools have wisened up to this. And aside from, and I'm not just saying that it's just South Africans that are like accepting these low paying jobs. There are other nationalities, of course, that are also doing that because we're all essentially here for different reasons. But yeah, so all of these compounding factors have led to the fact that salaries are not that great. However, it still is a decent amount if you plan on just staying in China. But if you, I don't know, in terms of if I were someone like from like the US or the UK, I would not be. And I plan on leaving China one day. I don't think I would do this job like unless it's like for a gap year and I just want to like be around in Asia for a while and see the other countries, then it's still like a decent option. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, the decision is up to you. I'm just like saying what the economic realities here might be for you. So, next up, I will be discussing the. Okay, so as I've mentioned at the previous section of this video, the market is tough. So, to give you like a better understanding of like what the field itself is like, like just the psyche of like these industries, of the industry, is that these schools are being run as businesses first and then schools second. So that means that the bottom line matters more than anything else. And how this is manifesting in schools is that, and this is happening at my school as well, is that across the board, salaries are being cut as if you're already like a teacher in a school. Yeah, like just operation costs are trying to be minimized by those in management positions here, and that means that usually we as foreign teachers are probably like the first to either they will fire some of us and then they will add those classes on to like pre-existing teachers, or they will just try to, if they're not tinkering on your actual salary, then they will try to remove some benefits away from you. So that would mean, for example, like job listings that I've noticed, like they used to offer at least 50% pay during the winter and summer vacations to up to like fully paid. But now it seems like the norm is to not pay at all, in which if you're not aware, that's like 3 months of the year that you are not earning a salary, which is an insane amount of money to not be earning anything at all, even if you may be like saving up during the other months that you're getting paid. So do factor that in. I know that if you maybe like did like a couple of courses or like a TEFL course, there is this idea that the education field is disaster proof. Nothing is disaster proof in 2026. Nothing. So yeah, just always understand that these schools are being run as businesses. Unfortunately, another thing that I didn't mention like in the previous, I feel like I should have mentioned that there, but yeah. So discrimination based on skin color is very much still a thing. Like whites only job listings, they dead ass exist here. And I'm laughing. It's not funny, but I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. White is right here in China. So if you have blue eyes, blonde hair, and you speak English, that's enough to be getting like higher salaries. Obviously, and if you're from a European or like a European country, or you're from America, so that's essentially white skin still has a lot of prestige over here. So for those of us who are darker than beige, assume that when you see a job listing that has a certain salary range, assume that your salary is going to be on the lower end as opposed to the higher end, irrespective of your qualifications. As far as I'm aware, there isn't really any type of recourse for schools that are doing that. Even if there might be, I haven't like double fact checked this, even if there might be anti-discrimination laws here in China, which as far as I know, I don't think that they exist. But even if they do exist, they are not being enforced. So that's not going to change. That's kind of just like built into the culture. And sometimes it's not even that the schools themselves care necessarily about your skin, but for marketing purposes, because there is like what you might not be aware of is if you come here, you are essentially also being hired as a prop and not just as a teacher. So if they notice that, or I'm sure that they notice that teachers with lighter skin get higher engagement on social media apps. Parents are more interested in signing up their kids at schools. So there's economic incentive for them to just be like trying to get as many white people as possible. We'll say though that it's, if you're a white South African, however, you're kind of like in the same bin as I am, which is like the undesirables, but will do in a pinch, essentially. So that is just the nature of the game. It's not going to change anytime soon. And I'd rather just be like honest about the realities of being here as opposed to like pretending that everything here is like, I don't know, but there's just been like so much like glazing of this country that's been happening, that I feel like some of it is true, but not everything is as it seems on the other side. Aside from discrimination, schools will try to screw you over in one way or the other. Unfortunately, that is the norm here. It is not the norm if to have like a school that does not fuck you over in one way or the other. And what do I mean by fucking you over? So aside from like the fact that I mentioned like darker skin colors are still heavily discriminated against, they will they can try to fuck you over by not paying your taxes on time. So you have to be very diligent on those aspects especially when it comes like a tax refund season, to make sure that everything. I mean, usually you should be able to like check your records on the tax app or tax apps. Apparently, there's multiple that they have over here, or they can try to screw you over with like insurance or starting dates. So just do your due diligence in making sure, or like ask as many questions as possible. Like those are some things that I would like follow up on with while I'm being interviewed for schools. And I cannot emphasize this enough, but know your rights. I know I just mentioned that there aren't really, or I could be wrong, that there aren't really discrimination laws here. However, you do have rights, some rights, especially when it comes to if your school is not paying you. That's more than enough grounds for like if you were to like sue your school, whatever, to like get your money back. The process might be a little bit difficult, especially if you're not familiar with the language or the way that the system operates here. But mostly for other cases, yeah, nothing's gonna really happen, in my opinion. So there are bilingual lawyers here available if you should ever need them. I know that there's lots of like Facebook groups that you can join or WeChat groups if you ever end up in a scenario where you need like some assistance. So you're not completely screwed, but do not come to this country assuming that everything will be done for you by the schools, because number one, you're an adult, and number two, why would they do that? So know your rights. Okay, so now we'll be talking about what potential red flags you can spot before you sign a contract with the school. Unfortunately, like there isn't really a way to know from jump if a recruiter is trying to screw you over. But how at some point, if you feel like you are, then you probably are. Do not hesitate to use as many recruiters as possible, or as many as that you are able to keep up with in trying to secure a job for you. I really wish I could give recommendations, but unfortunately, it is just like the luck of the draw when it comes to these recruiters. Two teachers or two prospective teachers could have like very differing opinions on their experience with like the same recruiter. But in general, like I feel like there are some like things that you could like notice on your own, which is like if they're being a dick, then don't work with them. If they're trying to bully you into a job that you don't want, or it's completely different than what you thought they were offering, do not work with them. Like it's a free process. Oh yeah, and also like if any of them are trying to convince you that you need to pay for their services, no, absolutely not. You're being screwed over there. And then secondly, as far as I'm aware, there's going to be like two types of recruiters. So there's going to be recruiters that like, as you would like assume, is basically like the middleman between a school and you, and you're being signed up directly under the school. But there's also agencies here, and I'm not too sure about the validity of them as a legal. Yeah, legally, I'm not too sure about them. So yeah, there can be agencies that essentially have like the work that a school would be directing their HR department to do outsourced to them. So basically, like an agency will be paying your salary, and I've never worked through an agency, and I do not intend to ever. So I would suggest, it, where possible, get hired directly by a school to ensure that if there is some legal recourse that you need to take one day, and hopefully you won't, but realistically you probably might, it would be best to be directly signed under the school. So please, 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 please understand the documentation process of your visa. You're most likely going to be coming here under the, I think it's the Z visa. I will correct that if I'm wrong. So I wonder if there is another type of visa that I'm not too sure how that one works. But yeah, so nothing other than a Z visa for teaching. Of course, there's going to be illegal ways to enter the country, which I highly do not recommend because it is illegal and China is very, 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 what's the word, on top of things when it comes to like immigration. So make sure that you are not working here illegally, and you can like go to your consulate's website or call the embassy and find out if the process or the visa that you're signing up for like matches what is the job listing that you're signing up for. So please do not assume that your recruiter is your friend. Do not make that mistake. They're just here to get paid like the rest of us. So again, yeah, do your due diligence on that as much as possible. Yeah, try not to be caught up in a situation where you're getting deported because you had no idea that your visa was the invalid one. Now to like actually move on to like the actual job here and what your day to day is going to potentially be like. As I mentioned before, I am currently working in the kindergarten department, so that's where my experience will be coming from. And I think I have like a general feel of what the overall vibe is of this industry. And basically, as I mentioned before, you are a prop as well as a teacher. So, aside from like teaching actual classes, you will probably have to participate in marketing events. For the most part, that will be offering demo lessons on weekends. You should be compensated for that, by the way. So, if your contract says anything about, or rather, it doesn't say anything about compensation for like extra hours, you're being screwed. So, to follow up on that, yeah, so China is a very image focused country, as I've mentioned before. You have to be, or well, it will be in your favor if you present yourself according to what they want, but you don't have to. You don't have to. If you're qualified and you know your shit, like then this doesn't apply to you. However, like it's lookism is still very much a thing here. So aside from just like I said, mentioned like the demo lessons, there is almost always a teacher in the class whose job it is to make marketing content for the school on their for their WeChat channel. I don't think that there's like specific requirements that you as a foreign teacher might need to like fulfill with regards to like those WeChat pages outside of like demo lessons. But for the most part, you are going to be asked to like record like a little video or helping students prepare for like speech competitions. And yeah, so just be aware that you're going to be doing things that might not make sense to you, or that you feel that you're not like fully qualified for. So yeah, just giving you like a heads up on that. As I mentioned, the actual job, typically for kindergarten jobs, we have longer lunches than the older students might, because the younger students, they need to have their nap time. So depending on the type of job that you have, oh, I forgot to mention this. Like, so if you are working as an ESL teacher, typically you don't have to be in the classes. You during lunchtime, you just show up, teach your classes, and then when it's lunchtime, you can go off. But if you are a homeroom teacher, I think depending on the school, you probably have to spend your lunch, or at least a portion of your lunchtime will have to be spent like monitoring the students while they're sleeping in their classrooms. Again, depending on your school, this is not the case everywhere, but from what I've seen, the curriculum for in smaller schools in like smaller cities for like teaching English is basically non-existent. At best, there might be a textbook that you're going to be working from. If you're lucky and you work at a legit school that has a legit curriculum, you don't have to be breaking your brain about like trying to figure out what resources to use or how to teach. Yeah, so you're essentially going to be teaching yourself how to teach on the job. If you are at like a smaller school, I'm not sure what the situation is at public schools, but I've mainly worked in international slash bilingual schools, and from what I've seen, and also just like from peers that I've heard, there is no curriculum, or like not in the way that we would understand what a curriculum would be like. A lot of thumb sucking, so be prepared for that. Since you are going to be spending the majority of your time in a classroom, the people who you are managing that classroom with will make or break your experience. I'm referring to your co-teachers here, so for the most part, I would say try to win them over as quickly as possible. So it's like gifting is like very common in the culture here. So if you can maybe get them some fruits, or I think tea, like milk teas are also like that's my go-to. In terms of like establishing like good rapport between your coworkers, that's something that I would highly recommend, so that you don't start off on a wrong foot and you don't. It is in your favor to. You don't need to be best friends with your co-teachers, but it is in your favor to have them on your side. They might not have like any power over you in terms of like management or whatever, but they're, like I said, you're spending the majority of your time with them. So if they're happy, then you're happy. Okay. Good schools. Good schools. Everyone's definition of a good school is going to differ. They're kind of rare here. They're not the norm. You're probably gonna have to cycle through a couple of schools to find one that like suits your teaching style or understands you. And I think for me, that something that qualifies as like a good school is one that does not micromanage me. So right now I'm currently at a school where I'm very happy with like my manager. She's happy with me. It's a great time. My previous job was not a great time at all because I was working for a micromanager. If you find that you are stuck in a situation like that where you don't like the teaching style, you can find another job, but you are more likely to find a job where you're micromanaged than you aren't. I mean, office politics, and also I don't want to make this seem like this is like an inherently like Chinese thing. This happens everywhere in every field in every country. But just so that you don't come here with false pretenses about what living here or working here is going to be like, you have been warned or you have been informed, rather. So yeah, another like additional point that I would say is that your geography do factor in like where on the map your school is. Aside from just like if it's a tier 1 or a tier 2 city, like there's like the north of China, which is going to be like cooler, or is colder in the winter, and then there's going to be the south, which gets hot as shit. So if you are someone like me who does not like humidity, although China in general is a very humid country, doesn't matter where you are, avoid the south. Really avoid the south. If you're one of those lucky people who does not get bothered by temperature, you lucky duck. I envy you. But yeah, just like something to keep at the back of your mind if you come from like different climates. So overall, I would say if I had to like give you some advice as someone who's been here now for a hot minute, know upfront what it is that you want to get from this experience. I mean, you can obviously figure it out, but the more clear you are on your expectations, like I think the smoother your experience here will be. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And what I mean by that is, like, as I've mentioned before, this field, I don't really see it being around for that much longer because of like all of the previous reasons that I've mentioned. So I would try to, like, if you're someone who's just like trying to figure things out, as I am, I would suggest like treating like your teaching job as like a part-time job while you're working on something else, or like something more secure on the side. I don't know what that could be. That's for you and me to be figuring out. So yeah, moving to another country will not solve all of your problems. It can solve a lot of them. It has solved a lot for me, but it did not solve all of them. So again, like, be realistic with your expectations out of moving to another country. Understand that another country's way of operating is not going to bend to your will or needs, and especially not a country like China. Like, they've been doing shit, I don't want to say the same way, but they've been around for a hot minute. So there are inevitably going to be things that you find frustrating about being here. All of our reasons for that might differ, and understand whether or not those are deal breakers or not. Do not have a deal breaker and then try to move here anyways and then hope for the best. Why would you do that to yourself? Like, understand these are things that I am not willing to compromise on, so maybe consider either another country or another field entirely. Oh, so I think that's basically the end of the video. Oh, and if I can give you like some tips with regards to like some resources that I find helpful, Twinkle is your best friend. God, I love that website. So twinkle.com or dot whatever. And Games for ESL is also a very good website for some resources that if you're like brand new and you didn't have time or don't really understand, or you're, like I said, at a school that does not have a set curriculum, those two websites are your best friends. They're easily accessible for the most part. So you won't need like a VPN if you're using like a school computer to be downloading things from. So there are also like lots of other resources like as you stay in China that you're going to be exposed to. For example, like on Taobao, you can buy resources. And like I mentioned, Twinkle's a good resource to use. And you can buy Twinkle subscriptions from Taobao for like a fraction of the price that you would have to if you were like to sign up through the app itself or like the website itself. So you're welcome. Other videos, YouTube videos are also your best friend. I'm a big fan of Danny Go's channel. He's got like nice little like brain breaks that you can use if you just like want your kid, like if you have a classroom that has like an interactive board that you can like project videos onto. I think most of them do. Most schools here, I mean, do. And yeah, so I think that I have given like a shit ton of information with regards to this field. If I miss anything somehow, please let me know below in the comments. If you want to know a little bit more in depth about life here in China, I also have another video that I will be linking up here. So do click and watch that one if you feel that in spite of all the warnings or the information that I've given you up until this point, that you still want to proceed with this journey. I mean, at the end of the day, like in spite of like what advice I'm or other people who are like teachers here and are content creators like are giving you, you will only really ever know if you experience something for yourself. So do with that information what you want. At the end of the day, it is all up to you. I have yapped for a very long period of time, so I will be seeing you guys on the other side. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I will be uploading more content about my life here in China in the near future. So yeah, thank you for watching and bye!